This video is all about the housing market, 3-card Monte. And it's sunny, it's windy, and I'm gonna give you a quick tour of this neighborhood. Now, because I don't know if everybody knows what 3-card Monte is, I'll give you the short version. It's a card game and it is a con. There's a card dealer who manipulates the cards, and then there's one or two accomplices that are in on the act, and they are going to dupe you or some unsuspecting tourist or somebody really gullible, but they give the illusion that you can win because all you have to do is pick the right card. But the game is rigged. You can't win. And the dealer and the accomplices are all in it together to defraud you and steal your hard-earned money. If you are new to the channel, welcome aboard. My name is Chris Igoe. I'm a full-time, full-service realtor with an all-star team that services all of South Florida. And if you're a returning viewer, I appreciate your participation in our journey. And before I go into the con and into the data, which is informing my opinion that the game is rigged, because I've seen this game before when I was a stockbroker for 20 years, and I understand economic pattern recognition. But I also can't discount the fact that I just registered another buyer to potentially purchase a brand new home in a brand new development. And while that buyer is chomping on the bit to get into one of these homes, which by the way start at close to $2 million, which to be clear is not a flex, it's just the economic reality of what's happening here in my market. And right now I'm in Boca Raton, and I'm in the parking lot for Lotus Edge, which is a new development which is being built out here in Boca Raton. And I feel I would be disingenuous and irresponsible if I didn't show what the parking lot for the sales center looks like on a Tuesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And what you can't help but notice is that the parking lot is absolutely, completely filled. And yet, the folks who are registering to potentially buy a home are not a shoo-in to be able to purchase that home. They have to win a lottery in order to have the right to purchase a home. And I know that is not what the market is like everywhere in the country, but it is what the market is like here. And right now, I know the government is touting its incredible economic news, and the labor market looks unbelievable. And there's a reason for that. It's because it's not true. But mortgage rates are back up over 7%. And we just got the most ridiculous jobs report in recent history. But people want to believe that those numbers are true. And while I don't claim to be an economist, I do know how to read. And the numbers, when broken down, indicate that none of the job gains have been for full-time workers. They've all been part-time. And I saw a breakdown put out by Zero Hedge and confirmed by Peter Schiff that not only has all job creation in the past 4 years been exclusively for foreign-born workers, but there has been zero job creation for native-born workers since July of 2018. And yet, all of these blowout economic numbers continue to be revised downward. Just not the most recent one as of yet. But it's only been a few days. Let's check back in a few months or in a few years. But let's get back to 3-card Monte for a second, because the game from the outside looks like a lot of fun. It looks very exciting. It looks easy to win. And while I know that my market is more immune to economic changes than other markets, I also know the prices for homes in my market has skyrocketed. And while that is definitively causing an affordability crisis in other places, it has yet to stop my phone from ringing. And the only data that I can really point to as being 1,000% accurate is the data that I see, the data that I receive on a regular basis, the data that comes from people just like you who watch my videos and hire me to help them buy or sell a home in South Florida. And before I get too far into this, let me just disclose that the traffic on Glaze Road is no bueno. And what used to be a 15-minute trip to the beach now takes a heck of a lot longer. it's really not that bad. And yes, it is true. There have been lots of apartment buildings that have been built in other markets. It makes more sense for some people to rent rather than buy. But in Boca Raton, in Delray Beach, in Boynton Beach, in the surrounding areas, there is no more land to develop, or at least no zonable land to develop. And I should say that a little bit differently. There are suboptimal parcels of land that could be developed, but the big parcels of land that builders want to develop are either agricultural or zoned differently right now for a builder to do what it wants to do, which is, of course, to max out the value of that land, to seek the highest and best use of that land. But let's get back to the 3-card Monte, because I know there are lots of economic signs, leading indicators out there that show me that the consumer is in tremendous pain, and the pain is worsening. And consumers are starting to feel it. In fact, Japanese banks, which you might not think is relevant, except it's a leading indicator as to what's going to happen in the future. Japanese banks tanked by 20% after flagging losses tied to U.S. commercial property. And yet, credit card delinquencies surged more than 50% in 2023. Total consumer debt exploded to $17.5 trillion. The New York Fed reported Tuesday that total debt rose by $212 billion last quarter, and the debt has transitioned into serious delinquency, which means it's 90 days or more late. And while credit card debt was the biggest offender, delinquencies also rose in mortgages, auto loans, and other. And unlike the street hustlers that I witnessed in the 80s when I went into New York with my parents to watch a Broadway show, I know that the street hustlers of this housing market 3-card Monte aren't street hustlers. Rudy Giuliani took care of those folks. Now it feels like those hustlers are the mainstream media, are some mortgage brokers, are some real estate professionals, are some other media outlets that are telling people to buy the house and date the rate. But everybody seemed to think that Big Papa Powell was going to do something different than what he said he was going to do. And frankly, up until just recently, I think the pressure was getting to him. I thought he might cave and he might relent from what he said he was going to do. But I know it's volatility season, and I know we're headed into an election, and I'm never going to be surprised when somebody pulls an economic rabbit out of its hat. But Powell insists the Fed will move carefully on rate cuts, with probably fewer than the market expects. And when I was a stockbroker and I saw the liquidity crisis firsthand because I was trading in the markets, I watched the banks fail. I watched the system fail. And I watched it get bailed out. But the latest bailout for the banking system, the Bank Term Funding Program, which saved the regional banks when SVB went illiquid and there was a run on the banks, that program expires March 11th, up until it doesn't. But in the meantime and in between time, there is massive pent-up demand from buyers for new construction in my market. And the home prices in Lotus Edge are going higher. And while Tucker Carlson is interviewing Vladimir Putin, the street vendors in South Florida have made their selection clear.